Does this one work? Oh, yeah. You can hear me? Perfect, that's good. Yeah, it helps when you bring half your team with you. Then they make it a little louder. But thank you very much, BW. Thank you, organizers, for this great opportunity. And thank you, Dr. Sanjay, and the last panel. I think it was actually a nice segue to what I've got to talk about. Maybe we could have the slides, please, team. So my name is John. I work for a company called Novo Nordisk. You may or may not have heard of Novo Nordisk. We're a Danish headquartered pharmaceutical company, 103 years old. And for about 95 of those years, our primary focus was diabetes. If you know anybody who takes insulin, there's a 1 in 2 chance that it's one of ours. We have a responsibility to deliver about half the world's insulin. For those of you who love Instagram, you might know us a little more for the obesity business, which is fueling a lot of our growth these days. But while I try and... do we have the slides? Yeah, okay. My own background, I'm originally from the UK, from England. Spent about half my career in the UK, and then kind of got booted out of the UK and onto this worldwide tour, which has given me a phenomenal and fascinating insight into leadership across cultures, across countries, and that's what I want to talk about. So having left the UK in 2010, I first moved to Denmark and had about 4.5 years working in Denmark. And then thinking that I was then going to get sent back to England, I started my love affair with Asia and had 5 years working in Japan and leading a large organization in Japan. From Japan to Thailand, and then Thailand to India. And maybe the segue to the previous panel and my own leadership journey is summed up by perhaps 3 things. The faster I can get rid of the backpack that's got the heavy weight of ego in it, the more successful I am. And that's not just being cross-cultural, I think that's being within a leadership context in a country. The faster I can kind of inject myself with some versatility, the more successful I am. And the faster I can get rid of that ego and perhaps fill the backpack full of vulnerability, the more successful I am. So very interesting discussion in the previous panel. So you'll be pleased to know that it's between, I've got the 10-minute slot now between you and the awards. I'll try and keep it simple, I'll try and keep it quick, and I'll try and tell a few stories along the way. Basically 5 points, 3 are stolen from other people that you'll see, and then a couple of stories at the end. So the first point, my learning is that nobody gets up in the morning to come to work to cause trouble. As frustrating as perhaps our employees are at times, in my experience, it's me who has to change. It's me who has to figure out what's bringing that frustration, because at least the vast majority, there might be 0.1% who want to come and cause trouble. But for us, understanding the environment, understanding the cultural dimension to which our employees are bringing themselves to work, and they're creating the environment, as we saw in the previous panel, where people can bring their real selves to work, then we eliminate some of the frustrations that perhaps may be the friction between leaders and employees. The next one is a little bit interesting from the native English speaker who's really bad at languages. But this really came to me, and it was actually a piece of advice when I landed in Japan. John, don't confuse English language ability with ability. Often there's an inverse correlation. And as a foreigner coming into a country, it's a very easy mistake to make. That the first person that comes and is fluent in English and charming and wonderful and eloquent in the way they explain the problems, you can trust me, you can listen to me, I know everything about this organization. If we fall into that trap, we fall into it at our peril. And I can tell you, both in Japan, the first leader who came to me with all of these stories, and I fell into that trap and I listened to him for weeks, months. A year later, I said goodbye to him. Yeah. Then I moved to Thailand, and the same happened. Business unit head, fluent in English. I kind of fell into the trap of thinking not only are you fluent in English, but you're fluent in business and fluent in D&I and fluent in culture and fluent in leadership. Big mistake. 2 years later, goodbye to that leader too. So if you're training leaders and developing leaders, encourage them to create the environment for all the people, whether it's language difficulties, whether it's introverts, whether it's extroverts, whether it's working mums, whether it's males, whatever it is. Be sure that the environment that you create for your leaders and your leadership teams is inclusive, as the previous panel said. And some of the things that I've done in my experience to fix this, I speak slowly, I speak clearly, I speak short sentences, I perhaps brief people, some people the day before, on what we're going to talk about tomorrow in order for them to process it and get their scripts right, ready to communicate in the meeting. But the big mistake is, for me at least, as a native English speaker, is to come into a country and then assume that fluency equals competence. It often does not. The third point is one of the stolen ones. In fact, the last three are the stolen ones. This would be familiar to you. This is a Stephen Covey thing. As I move into a new country, as I move into a new leadership responsibility, and my background is sales and marketing, and then I moved into heading up this 4,000 strong GCC in Whitefield. Very easy as a leader to join the dots too fast and to then assume that you have all the answers. My advice to cross-cultural leaders is seek first to understand, deeply understand, before seeking to be understood. Quite frequently in my career experience, which is now 15 years leading in different cultures and different countries, I walk into making the same mistakes again and again because I'm not taking the time to understand the nuances of the situation, the relationship, the culture, and before I start fixing business problems. But with that, of course, comes to what Dr. Sanjay was talking about, vulnerability. If you're not able to bring yourself to be vulnerable with your teams, you're not able to be able to really do this well. Then the last two are Einstein quotes, I believe, unless the internet's failed me. The first one being insanity and, coming into an organization when things go wrong. And particularly I've seen this in my last two roles. The team perhaps defaults to just, well, let's just repeat the process and say a few prayers and hope that we get a better outcome. But clearly that's not going to happen. So as a leader, I've got to create the environment that fosters innovation, that fosters speak up, that fosters the ability for people to understand how things could be done better. And You know, one of the things that I've learned from this, I remember being in charge of quite a catastrophic mistake in Japan. And an EVP came to visit to do a business review, and she said these words, they still haunt me, right? She said, I want a root cause analysis of what's gone wrong here and who is responsible. And then I will work on the consequences. And if you can imagine an environment where loss of face is as important as it is here in India, what happens? The entire room just shut the doors. And I had to step forward and say, well, that'll be me that's responsible then. What are the consequences? And what I try to do now when things go wrong is to encourage our leaders to say, okay, nobody's died. The company's not closed down. So what can we learn from this? And creating the environment for people to speak up and propose solutions helps significantly in ensuring that we actually iterate and move forward as leaders, as an organization. And then finally, point number 5, this is something which has driven me through my whole career. If I'm not able to explain a concept, a tool, a system, no matter how complicated it is, you know, and in a pharmaceutical company, we're dealing with AI, we're dealing with biology, we're dealing with complex molecular cascades. If I can't explain that in a way that my mother, my grandmother, or one of my friends who are not in my industry can understand, I'm failing my employees. And quite frequently, I see the opposite happen, where we start a talk and we're so complex, we go straight over the audience's heads. It fuels our own self-esteem, but we miss the point. And it's important within our organizations, but it's also important as a cross-cultural learning tool, that when I try now, after 5 countries, to engage with our employees, I try very hard to keep it super simple. Much easier to ramp up the complexity through Q&A than it is to do it the opposite way around. And then finally, I'm going to give you 3 little stories or 3 little books that have shaped my leadership career. The first one being a rather interesting one, the message, could I be wrong? Right, it's something I consistently ask myself. I'm going to make a decision, could I be wrong? If I'm wrong, what then? And there's one small story, if you'll allow me 2 minutes, I'll explain it. Imagine we're in the COVID-19, I'm general manager of Novo Nordisk Thailand, I'm at an event with all our sales force, and a lady comes, after a few glasses of Chablis, comes up to me, she's one of our best salespeople, and she kind of wobbles up and tells me, my sales targets are too high. Your job is to fix it. Thank you very much. Good night. You know, I move away. About 9 months later, I'm sat on a Saturday night with my wife, also now 3 glasses of Chablis down, and I get a text message on my phone from the head of marketing. And she says, we've got a bit of a problem. One of our employees, her name is Kun Pair, she's gone a little bit loopy. And she's posting all over social media how bad the company is, how we set targets that are too high, the benefits are terrible, the leadership's awful. By the way, you're named in this, so's the company. It's on LinkedIn, it's on Instagram, it's on Twitter, it's on it's on Facebook, it's on Snapchat, everywhere. And everything inside me is saying, right, let's get the lawyers in. Everything is saying, protect me, protect the company, protect my ego. And then I remembered this conversation, and I remembered the human that we're dealing with. And I said, you know what, there's something going on here that we're not sure about. And actually, HR director at the time is also in the room here. She can corroborate the story. We have a discussion, and we say, let's try something that doesn't involve the lawyers. Let's put as much love into this situation for the next 48 hours as we possibly can. And let's see what the outcome is. I'm going to take a risk. Headquarters may fire me, but I believe that there's a human behind all of this, and there's a human story. So we did. We found the family, we found a boyfriend, we found amazing psychologists. We put her through as much support, medical support, as we could possibly give. And 48 hours later, the posts start being deleted, and I will cut out the rest of the story. About half a year later, she had a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. She's still in the company. She's still one of the best representative salespeople that Novo Nordisk Thailand has got. And you can imagine the power that that individual has got within the organization. So injecting myself with a bit of could I be wrong is very, very important. Second story, everybody matters. 10 seconds on this. Our truly human leadership matters. We have some of our HR team here in the audience who have recently had to undertake one of the toughest things I've ever done in my career, which is actually to say goodbye to a bunch of people in our organization in Bangalore. And we focused everything about this. We could have done layoffs by Teams meetings, we could have done it in groups, we could have done it by email, we could have done it in many different legal ways. We focused on individual conversations that respected human beings. And that is super, super important. And the final message for all of us as leaders, this book's really interesting, but there's one page in it that really shapes and how I would encourage you to shape the leaders in your organizations. Talks about 3 dimensions to our leadership. The first is warrior leadership, setting direction, demanding results, driving performance. The second is nurturing leadership, creating the environment for people to thrive, being kind, being thoughtful, being inclusive. And the third is taking time out to heal ourselves. Because if we are damaged, we can't help our colleagues. And those 3 dimensions we all use in the wrong order. We spend 75% of our time on the warrior leadership setting direction. We spend 27% of our time, or 22% of our time on the healing of our people, and the tiniest part on healing ourselves. And arguably, we should split them in 3/3. And with that, thank you very much for the opportunity. I hope it was interesting.